if you get an idea and then you find yourself researching on how to perfectly execute that idea, you find yourself researching all of the steps involved, like how to do each step, what are all of the things that you would run into at each phase, how to do this part of it, how to do that part of it, and you spend months, days, weeks, even years sometimes trying to perfect your idea or get enough information before you actually take action, this episode is for you. So today we're going to be talking about perfectionism. Now, I'm no therapist, but I'm very introspective and I've connected some of the dots in my life as to why I have struggled with perfectionism for so long. And I'm just going to be sharing that, and then we'll also walk through what has helped me overcome my perfectionism, not necessarily fully, but like to the point where when it comes back, when there is the desire or the temptation to start researching my ideas again, I have a way to override that so that it doesn't hold me back. So how did we even get here, right? I'm just going to talk from my perspective, from my feelings, from my point of view, okay? So I felt like when I was growing up, there was a lot of pressure to be perfect. Not necessarily be perfect, but to be very well at everything I did, especially academics. Like, I grew up in the Caribbean in St. Lucia, for those of you who don't know. And I feel like in our culture, there's a lot of comparison going on where you're often compared to other people, and then there's such a high expectation to perform and to excel. And I feel like these two things, all of the pressure to succeed, the pressure to do well, the pressure to get high grades all the time, the pressure to just, be some type of golden child, made me get to the point where I was so afraid of doing things if I felt like I couldn't do it really well, because it's like I was anticipating criticism or anticipating negativity of me messing up. So that would almost paralyze me and cause me to be stagnant or just not take action because I wanted to avoid that. Right? So that manifested in my adulthood to where now, or like in recent years, I would get an idea to do something or to start something, and then I would spend months researching it, right? Either days, weeks, or months researching an idea, like looking up every single component of that idea, how to start, how to grow it, how to scale the thing, how to make money from that thing. Or I start something, if it's like a random hobby or whatever, and it's like I'm thinking of how to be the best at whatever I'm doing. So all of that unnecessary pressure I put on myself made me a perfectionist. It made me struggle with perfectionism. And I do want to give this disclaimer too. I feel like because there was always a high standard placed on me, I eventually developed very high standards for myself. And yes, that contributed to the perfectionist tendencies. But then also, I kept a good part of it because I feel like it's not bad to have a high standard for yourself. It's not bad to want to do well. It's not bad to want to excel. I feel like you just really have to analyze your motives. Like, is it because you're fearing criticism or because you just want to achieve your highest potential at something? You see what I mean? It's the underlying motives that decide whether or not it's an issue or whether it's a good standard to have. But I have high standards for myself just out of wanting to give my best in what I do. So I want to give this disclaimer because I don't want y'all to think that it's a bad thing to have high standards or to want to do well. It's just what motivates you, right? So with that in mind, with these high standards for myself, yes, sometimes I feel like, okay, I want to have some knowledge, some information when I'm getting started at something and I want to do really well at it. The issue is when the fear of being judged or being criticized or looking stupid now makes you stagnant and you procrastinate in the form of research by spending all of this time looking up stuff, researching how to start, researching different people who do that thing, researching this, researching that, doing all of this stuff to try to get motivated, all of this information you have gathering, storing in your notes in Google Docs, writing down, etc., but you're never actually implementing any of it. You're not taking action. That's where the problem lies, right? In the inaction. Because all of that research and all of that preparation literally makes you feel like you are doing something. Like, literally, I would feel like I was accomplishing something or I was creating momentum by researching, by having all of this information, by getting ready. So, the first thing I've learned is that you cannot perfect what doesn't exist. You cannot perfect what doesn't exist. Before I started this podcast, I procrastinated in a form of research, due to those perfectionist tendencies for months. For months. Planning stuff like my logo, the logo I don't even use anymore. Planning stuff like my logo, my brand design, my images, putting off the cover art, putting off the content. The content has to be perfect. The content has to do this. I need to have a script. I need to do this. I need to do that. Then I need to figure out how to grow a podcast, what platforms to put it on, how to make a YouTube channel. Mind you, my YouTube is fairly new compared to how long I've been making audio episodes. But before I even released my first episode, before I even had a name for the podcast, I was already looking up how to grow on YouTube. You see how that makes no sense? I didn't even start YouTube until probably a year into podcasting. So why am I wasting time in the beginning looking up how to grow a YouTube channel? I don't have a YouTube channel. One thing you have to realize is if you're trying something, looking up information or doing your research just to be informed is not a bad thing. But if you know that step that you are looking up is not something that you could do immediately, it's something that's like months or years down the line, just relax. Okay, just relax. Just relax. Ultimately, if you have like a big vision for that thing, like you can see a vision for yourself doing that thing down the line and you have a plan for where you want it to go, and you are just doing some like mini prep work or whatever to try to like finalize things per se, even though we make plans and God laughs, but sometimes you need a little bit of direction, right? If you're doing that, that's not necessarily a bad thing. But so for example, if you know your immediate goal right now is to maybe start a meal prepping service or something like that, right? You want to start a meal prepping service and you're going to be doing it out of your kitchen, right? It's in the beginning stages. You don't have all the fancy equipment, whatever. You starting out of your kitchen. That's what you want to do. You want to have a meal prep service. If you find yourself spending hours and weeks, days researching, like buying a commercial building to put your business in, just take a few steps back, okay? We are not there yet. You don't have your first client. Why are you looking up how to buy commercial real estate? You see what I mean? Or if your goal is to like, I don't know, go back to school and get your MBA or something, why are you looking at post-college jobs right now? You see, the thing is, it's not a bad thing to try to like plan for the future. But if you're spending days and weeks looking up like postgraduate opportunities and all of this stuff, but you haven't even applied yet, maybe apply first. You see what I mean? Maybe spend the time looking up which school you actually want to go to, where you actually want to enroll, maybe submit the application before you start looking up all of these extra things if you know that's something you really want to do or that's something you're called to do. Okay? Stick to step 1, not step 52. Slow down. Okay? That's how we get into procrastinating. We start with step 1, and then before we even do the actions for the things that we learned in step 1, we're still researching and we're on step 52. Implement step 1, right? So the first thing I've learned is that you cannot perfect what doesn't exist. Sometimes, and I've realized this firsthand, sometimes you start researching, feeling like you're accomplishing something, feeling like you're creating momentum, fake momentum, because you're not actually doing anything. But you start researching and then you're on step 7 and it takes you maybe 6 months to actually do what you learned in step 1 of your research. So you just started 6 months later, 6 months into researching, you're on step 7. And now that you've done step 1, you realize that what you learned in step 2 doesn't even apply here. You have to do something completely different because things are going a different direction and you have to pivot. So now all of the information you learn from step 2 to 7 is obsolete. So, what do you have to show for the 6 months that you wasted preparing? Nothing. You cannot perfect what doesn't exist. The way you actually perfect, quote unquote, or improve, I should say, is by actually starting and improving along the way, which is the second thing. Develop a mindset of continuous improvement versus perfectionism. Continuous improvement will tell you, okay, I don't know what I'm doing. This is completely new, but what I will do is I will start and I will improve it along the way, right? So maybe I might set a timer for 30 minutes to an hour. That's what I do nowadays. I set a timer for 30 minutes to an hour and I research stuff relating to step one because part of me still needs the information. So I set a timer for 30 minutes to an hour, and with what I have gathered in that time frame, I have to use that to take action. And before I research anything again, before I start to look up anything, I have to have done step one. So whatever I'm looking up is relevant to the progress I've made so far and not some imaginary momentum that I'm creating by continuing to research something that I have not even started. So the mindset of continuous improvement will tell you, do something, put something out there, take the first step, and then improve on that. Improve with every rep, right? If it's content, improve something with every post. If it's working out, add another rep or add 5 more minutes to your workout so that you can build and improve your endurance and your strength each time. You see what I mean? Continuous improvement is just saying, let's just make small improvements along the way. With every step, let's improve something. That is how you actually perfect something or get to a point where you look like you're excelling at something versus like you're just starting out and you don't really know what you're doing. Because the thing is, when we're just starting out, we look at people who have been doing this thing for like 10 years and we compare our humble beginnings or our humble ideas because we haven't done anything to their 10 years of work, and we feel discouraged. It's like, how do I even do that? How do I even post this much? How do I even get these results? They have been doing it for 10 years. You can get there too and look like that to somebody else if you allow yourself to just improve each time. If you start and you just improve each time, if you adopt a mindset of continuous improvement versus comparison and research, because you want things to be perfect from the beginning, that's a fallacy. Like that's not actually a thing. That's not going to work, right? You have to give yourself permission to start from zero and work your way up to 100 or close to 100, 90, 80, whatever, you know? You have to give yourself permission to start at zero. That's the only way you can get better at doing something. But until you give yourself that permission, you will always remain stagnant. You will always feel like it has to be perfect. You will always be comparing your level 1 to somebody's level 10. Level 10 comes with repetition. Level 10 comes with improvement. It doesn't come with a year or 10 years of research and then all of a sudden you have all this information. You can just start perfectly. No. Sometimes there are different things that you can do to gain an advantage, like investing in a course, investing in your education, or getting a mentor, getting accountability partners, getting in a room full of people doing the same thing so you have the accountability and you have the environment, right? Some of these things can give you a leg up, but ultimately, what really makes things work is when you actually start and you improve along the way. That's the only way you can actually make progress. You don't make progress by doing all of this research. You are not getting anywhere. You just have a phone full of notes or a Google Doc full of docs of just notes of things that you have not done. Okay, it's not progress. Do not deceive yourself into thinking that me researching means that I'm making progress. Progress comes with action. Progress comes with implementation. Okay, that is what you need to learn, how to measure your progress in terms of action and implementation, not research, not ideas. How many of these things have you actually done? That is how you create progress and momentum. Do not deceive yourself into thinking research is doing that for you. because it's not. And this is such a full circle moment for me because I think my very first podcast episode for 3 years ago, over 3 years ago, was on perfectionism. And that episode was actually from the perspective of me being like fed up with myself because I was putting it off for so long, trying to perfect everything before I started. And I just threw an episode out there. And now I can tell you, over 160 something episodes later, I have gotten better over time. There have been a lot of things that I got wrong, per se. There have been a lot of things that were not the best, but I have learned to optimize it along the way. I have learned to create YouTube videos along the way. I've learned to edit them along the way. I bought the camera to record the YouTube videos along the way, but I didn't have the funds to buy my equipment and stuff when I just started. So it's like now I have a nice mic, but when I just started, I bought I think $20 mic from Amazon that I still have, right? And the audio quality wasn't the best. It was picking up on all kinds of background noises. But I was so afraid to start in the beginning because I was like, this quality is not up to par with my standard. But I had to give myself permission to start at zero and work my way up. And I'm still working my way up. And the thing is, it's not just with podcasting, it's with everything in my life. I had to give myself permission to start at zero and work my way up to 100. That is the only way you get better. Sometimes it's being afraid of failing in front of people, being afraid of criticism because you don't know what you're doing, you're just starting out. Sometimes it's, like you just feel so new to the thing. You don't want to embarrass yourself depending on the thing. It's like all of these thoughts we have in our head, but if it's something you really want to do, I have learned that I can spend all of the time researching, or I can start and spend all of that time improving. So that's what I want you to think about. That's what I want you to ask yourself. A year is going to go by whether you start taking action or not. Do you want a year to go by of you researching, or do you want a year to go by of you starting and improving along the way? How much better will you be a year from now at whatever it is you want to do if you actually just started with what you knew and didn't know today, but you committed to improving with every rep versus researching for 6 months and then feeling comfortable to start, and then you realize of the research you've done, half of it you cannot use because it's irrelevant or it's outdated. And now 6 months went by that you have nothing to show for. So it's like you could have had 6 months of progress. Regardless of where you have been with your perfectionist journey at this point in time, regardless of how much time you have spent researching at this point in time, I am inviting you to give yourself permission to start from zero and just put something out there with what you know right now. Do not research another single thing. Do not research another thing again. Do not research another piece of information. Do not research another guide. Do not look for any more information. With what you know now or with what you don't know now, just put something out. You'll realize that most of the fear is just putting that first piece of work out or making that first attempt, going there the first time, your first rep. That's the hardest one. Every other one gets easy after that, literally. But you won't know that if you just keep yourself in this cycle of procrastination or this cycle of research in the form of procrastination. So the first 3 things that have helped me with overcoming my perfectionist tendencies is understanding that you cannot perfect what doesn't exist, developing a mindset or a habit of continuous improvement, and the third is give yourself permission to start from zero and work your way up to 100. Oh, and really quickly, I just want you to know that I do have a free guide on 3 steps to conquer procrastination, and it does include perfectionism, that you can get by going to secludedthoughts.com/procrastination. So just go there and I'll send you the free checklist if there's something you struggle with and you are ready to stop letting it rob you of your time. Okay? Now back to what I was saying. Now, here's 2 things that perfectionism robs you of that you don't realize while you're in this research loop, right? The first thing that I just alluded to is perfectionist tendencies, that researching, trying to get things right before you even do anything. The first thing it robs you of is the feedback of actually improving and getting closer to making it quote unquote perfect or really good, like the best version of that thing that it can be. It robs you of the feedback because you just have research. You haven't put anything out there. You don't know what works. You don't know what doesn't work. You just have an idea of what has worked for other people because you're taking advice from other people on what to do, but you haven't actually tried it to see if it will work for you, right? So you're collecting all of this data that could potentially be obsolete, and you're robbing yourself of the feedback that you need to actually do the thing you want to do really well. So if it's like working out, for example, you're creating all of these workout plans, looking at people on social media, on TikTok, all of the workouts they're doing, you're taking notes and making a whole folder in your notes or Google Docs or whatever so you can use when you go to the gym, but you haven't gone to the gym. And then maybe 6 months from now, you get the courage to go to the gym and you look at your little notes and you try those exercises and you're like, that I don't like this or I don't like that. I cannot do this properly. I might need help with this, getting my form right. So the very first day in the session that you took 6 months to work your way up to just going to the gym and doing the thing, you realize all of that research makes no sense because you cannot even get the form right. Or you do it and you think you're doing it well, but then you wake up with back pain the next day because your form was off. And 6 months from now, you realize that, maybe I need a personal trainer because me doing this by myself is not working. Or maybe I need to incorporate other easy workouts so I can do this by myself in the most inexpensive way and still get the workout that I need. But you learned that 6 months down the line after finally starting when you could have learned that maybe on day 2. You see what I mean? Because if you went on day 2 and you realized that, immediately you would get that feedback like that this is not working. These workouts don't work for me. Let me try something else. And then maybe with you doing that for a week, you finally realize that, oh, you know what? Actually, I just need to go on the treadmill. Or actually, I can do all of the workouts that I need on this one exercise machine and I don't have to be all around the place. Or you know what? This is not as complicated as I thought if I just do it this way. In a week, you could have enough feedback to get a regimen that in doing it for 6 months, you could have already had the results that you wanted. But instead, you researched for 6 months before finally starting, and now you're starting the process of getting the feedback and improving 6 months down the line because you thought you had to research all the time. No, procrastination is robbing you of the feedback you need to actually improve on something. So instead of spending all of this time researching, you need to start putting things out there. Throw yourself out there, do it, get the feedback, and then improve from there, right? So that's the first thing. It robs you of the feedback you need to actually improve. The second thing is it robs you of the consistency you need to get the results. If we use the gym example again, going to the gym, you don't just wake up every single day and want to go to the gym in the beginning. It's hard before it gets easy, right? And it's even when you start going, it's hard to stay consistent too sometimes. And sometimes life happens and you have all of these schedule changes and you might find it hard to have a regimen where you can consistently go to the gym or any type of workout activity that you want, right? But in you procrastinating, researching gyms, researching workouts, researching meal plans when you haven't even bought your first fitness set yet, you haven't even gone to the gym yet, you spend in say 6 months procrastinating on that. That's 6 months of consistency you could have had that would create and solidified a new habit of going to the gym, of saying that every Tuesday and Thursday at 6:30 I go to the gym. You could have had 6 months of creating that habit to where now it's automatic, but now 6 months down the line you are just starting off and you're realizing how hard it is to be consistent, on top of the fact that all of the research, all of the workouts that you research is not working for you, and now you feel discouraged because in 6 months of all of that preparation you really have nothing to show. And when you see how going there for the first time is so anticlimactic and it doesn't actually equate to the amount of research that you've done, Like you thought you had all of this momentum with your research and then you finally do it and it's like completely horrible because it's your first time. That creates disappointment, that discourages you, that makes you feel like I wasted my time. What was I even doing this for? And you could give up right then and there. But if you just throw yourself out there and you override these perfectionist tendencies to research, if you just start taking action now, in 6 months, you could have 6 months of consistency. You could have 6 months of dealing with setbacks. You could have 6 months of your schedule changing or the weather changing or things coming up, but you figuring out how to still weave in your workout time in your routine, right? So 6 months down the line, you have a regimen for your perfect days and you have a regimen for if it's a busy week and you have to move things around, you know which times you're going to go to the gym instead or which times you're going to go to that workout studio instead because you have 6 months of practice of moving things around as you need to so that you can remain consistent in working out, in going to the gym. You see what I mean? It robs you of the opportunity to be consistent and make that thing automatic so you don't have to consciously convince yourself to do it every time. I have been podcasting now for 3 years. If I don't record when I say I'm going to record, or if an episode is late or something, I feel it. I feel it because I know what's the norm for me. And that's why, in the past, I've even acknowledged this because I know what's the norm for me. Because I've had 3 years of doing this consistently, right? It's literally like a part of my life, a part of my routine now. So I don't have to think about it. It's automatic. It's just something I know I have to do. And it's a matter of putting it in my schedule depending on how often I feel like recording or how many episodes I want to record at that point in time. You see what I mean? Because I've been doing it consistently for so long because I stopped procrastinating and researching and trying to get things perfect. So now it's just a part of me. Your perfectionist tendencies is robbing you of the opportunity to be consistent at whatever it is you want to do. So I want you to keep these things in mind the next time that whole research itch starts coming around the corner when you have your next idea or for whatever idea you have right now. Give yourself permission to start from 0 and work your way up to 100. Improve on every rep because you cannot perfect something that doesn't exist. And keep in mind that the longer you put it off, the more you will be robbed of the feedback you need to improve and the opportunity to create a consistent schedule so that you can just make that thing a part of your lifestyle, a part of your habits without consciously thinking about doing it every single time. And this is ongoing. This is not you do this for one thing and then boom, perfectionism solved. No, you have to keep that in mind every time and reapply these tips. Keep them in mind and reapply them with every idea, with every time you think about procrastinating or researching something before you start it. Set a 30-minute to an hour timer for researching the very first step and then take action with what you have and then keep these steps in mind. Okay? So that's what I've been doing for a few years now and it's been really helping me. So I really hope this helped you. I really hope that you start taking action. Leave a comment below with the very first thing that you know you need to do right now to just throw yourself out there. Leave a comment with whatever it is that you know you need to do and give yourself a deadline to do it. Okay? But I hope this helped you, and that is all I have to say today, and I will talk to you next Sunday.